welcome. So, as we know, big climax of the Divine Diamond Extreme Randomizer just came out, and the question of the day was, who do you think is the strongest character canonically? And as some of you might know, I made a Reddit post on the T-Tar Reddit about like a month or two ago now, asking about the same question about lore and the canonicity and power scaling T-Tar. And since then, I've been thinking about it, and I see this question as the day to finally take a look at the T-Tar lore and really pick out who's the strongest character canonically. If I might do a future video doing Uranium, Xenoverse, and Insurgents, but for right now, I am just doing Extreme, the 4 seasons of Extreme. And let me tell you, man, after picking apart all 4 seasons for the last like 2-3 hours, and just my previous years and years of experience, trust me, I've been watching this shit since 6th grade, and I'm 18, almost 19 now. So I've been watching this shit for like 7 years, bro. I'm quite experienced, I would say. But let me tell you, there are a lot of inconsistencies in this lore. And as such, I've broken it down into 4 tiers. The legends, people who are particularly strong, but don't really have any real lore backing them up. The lore keepers, from Alpha Sapphire. Hypotheticals, people who may be Celestial kind of tier, lore keeper tier, but I don't particularly know where I would place them. The actual Celestials and people that are Celestial tier, and then God Keepers, the best of the best, top of the top tier, the top of the verse. Going all the way down, all the way at the bottom of the Legends tier, we have Acerola from Sun Extreme. So, Acerola, like Sun Extreme T-Tar, is a descendant of the Dark King. We know that for canonicity, but besides that, she has nothing else really backing her up. So, we know she does have that dark power to her. She doesn't particularly use it for anything. It's like, if she trained, she probably could be all the way up at Celestial, maybe even Godkeeper tier, but she has no dark training. And as we know, in the normal Sun game, Acerola is an Elite Four member. So I feel like if Sun Extreme got to finish, Acerola could have been easily like Celestial tier. But as it stands, she has no real feats to back her up. Next up is 2 trainers, but hypothetically 3. Byron and Candace, as well, Volkner would be in this hypothetical tier. These 3 last gym leaders have no real lore to back them up, but they do hold shadow Pokemon, which is pretty substantial. We know shadow Pokemon are particularly very powerful, but these seem to be weak-ass little whatever shadow Pokemon, not to be on the same level as what we fought on Spear Pillar. So that's why they're still here, notable trainers and legends, but they aren't really of any note. And I don't have Volkner written here, but I feel like this is where he's going to be, although we might get lore in these next coming up episodes that can contradict this. That's why he's not here, because we don't know yet. Next up, we start to get into actual like champion tier-esque trainers, and if you guys have seen Chainsaw Man, you would know a very popular phrase they use in that show, in that manga, is ignorance is bliss. The more you know, the worse your life is, and that's how I feel after finding out this information. But next up is fucking Ilima. Ilima is canonically champion tier. In the episode Mullane, Mullane, Kukui, Guzma, and Ilima are all said to go on the Island Challenge together and become Island Challenge champions, making Ilima canonically champion tier. Like, in the lore of the series, Ilima is canonically a champion tier member, but since he's the first challenge, the first trial, I put him all the way at the bottom. He's still champion level, but I'd say he's the weakest champion level trainer that we know of canonically in Extreme. From there, we got the other Islands Challenge champions, which I consider like a semi-champion. They're not real champions, but they are considerably semi-champions in a sense. And my scale of these Islands Challenge champions were Buff Boy Kukui next. He's pretty stupid. He doesn't seem to have any real dark powers of any sorts to really back him up. He is Islands Challenge champion, but there is not much like lore behind there, but as we know, he is the final battle in base Sun. So I feel like he would buff up all the way to like Lore Keeper, maybe even hypothetical Celestial if Sun Extreme did keep going. Who knows? Ultra Sun Extreme could be a thing one day. We don't know. Probably not though, because that'd be too cool for T-Tar to do. Next up, I have Guzma because he does have Xurkitree Z as well as that weird Articuno, which is why again I have him above Byron. Right? Byron's the one. No, Candace has Articuno, so I do have him above Candace for that reason because not only does he have Xurkitree but also Articuno. He also has his own extremely powerful uh, Golisopod. So he has some real power behind him, and he seems to actually be pretty powerful enough for Kukui to almost bow down to him. And on top of that, I have Mullane. Mullane was one of the highest ranking captains at one point. Mullane canonically has he has dark powers. He has that Shadow Metagross, which was able to put Sun Extreme T-Tar on ropes, who at this point in the narrative was as strong as a Primal Dialga, which I'll get into later. But I don't think there's any real backing up lore behind other than that real Metagross. He again, Island Challenge champion, but nothing else besides that to really for his name. Now here we get into the Tapus or the Kahunas. I mean, which I think are just in direct order because there are only three canonical uh, Kahunas at this point in the story because we never get to see Hapu become a top. Fuck these names. We never get to see Hapu become a Kahuna ever because we never got that far. So I put Hala at the bottom. He's pretty strong, but he's Tapu Koko, which is not one of the stronger Tapus. And then Olivia. Olivia was able to genuinely put real fear into Kukui as an Islands Challenge champion. I think Olivia is very powerful. And then let me get into something weird. Nanu is obviously the strongest Kahuna. I think that's very obvious. We never get to see him battle, but everyone's fucking terrified of him. And on top of that, Nanu has Tapu Bulu, which I believe to be the strongest of the Tapus. But we get into another strong character here, Majin Maxi. Maxi has Zygarde, a powerful creature of the land, and I believe that 100% perfect Zygarde would be on the level of the original Dragon and Grand Tapu, but it's only 50%, which is why I put him above Hollow and Olivia, but I don't actually believe that Majin Maxi, due to his low number of Pokemon, I don't believe he would be stronger than Nanu. So I have him above Olivia, but below Nanu, Majin Maxi. From here, we start to get out of Sun Extreme and into Sword Extreme with Oleana. Oleana has the power of Gigantamax fit into one Pokemon with that weird Gigantamax Snorlax. She has not just a Gigantamax, another Gigantamax on top with Melmetal, a legendary mythical Pokemon that can also Gigantamax her very powerful Garbodor. She has some very power behind her, and at one point was considered to be a professor and a trainer who could keep up with Rose, who I believe could be a champion level trainer. Again, Rose would be in a hypothetical tier. We don't. Again, Sword Stream got canceled. We don't know. It's hard to say exactly how high tier Rose would have been, but Oleana, I would say, could be stronger than. Actually, fuck it. As we are speaking, I'm putting Oleana below Nanu. I just can't believe Oleana would be stronger than Nanu. And then from there we get to Mars. Mars is extremely powerful. Was able to go toe to toe with a T-Tar that just fought Wallace, with a T-Tar that just fought Wallace, with a T-Tar that easily was a Celestial level at that point. And now she's the current leader of Team Galactic. Mars is an extremely powerful trainer within the lore. A holder of Mesprit, which is a mythical not mythical, but like a extremely strong messenger of Arceus of sorts, a Pokemon that controls the emotions of people. Mesprit is extremely powerful. Mars has a lot of power behind her right now, especially with all of Team Galactic behind her. Mars is a real fucking threat right now within the narrative. From there, we get to May, who is still stronger than Mars. She is definitely champion level with her Volcanion. May is up at the top of the verse when it comes to base Alpha Sapphire before we start to get into a lot of the lore keepers, celestials, and gods. May is starts to get up there, but I do not believe she's as strong as Piers, who is the next up. And then above Piers we have Marnie, who is canonically stronger than Piers, and then Bede, who I believe is to be stronger than Marnie, especially because he seems to be the strongest non-god character within this. I get this because he has both Mewtwo and a fully awakened Jirachi. He is at the top of these legends tier. From there, we get to the lore keepers. Actually, there are only a few lore keepers because all the other actual lore keepers scale to gods and celestials. From here, we have, in my opinion, the weakest lore keeper, Super Saiyan Wally. Now, you may be saying that Wally was extremely powerful. He put T-Tar on the ropes. He almost defeated T-Tar. I think that's a lot of hype talking, because if you actually look at what's happening in the lore here, Wally only got this close to beating T-Tar because he basically fucking cheated. He just jumped T-Tar and sent out 5 against 1 at a time. Wally is actually pretty weak. He basically just cheated. Wally is not that powerful. He does have Primal Groudon and Mega Gallade, and I think it's Thunderous Therian, which is pretty powerful. And I think that Primal Groudon is what puts him on this lore keeper tier. Because he is a canonical lore keeper, but I think he's the weakest lore keeper. From there we get to Xynthia. Did I say Xynthia? Zinnia. Zinnia, who is strong enough to go against a champion levels, celestial level T-Tar, but she doesn't really doing much to him, and while she is the lore keeper of Rayquaza, she doesn't even have her Rayquaza. I think she is still stronger than Wally, but I do not think she could really do much. I think she's pretty weak. And then from the strongest character, I don't think he's Celestial level, but Morty is the strongest lore keeper. He's not a canonical lore keeper, but he does scale to them. He's the strongest he's not on the level, because up above this tier is Celestial. I don't think Morty is Celestial level tier, but he's pretty fucking powerful. He has that Shadow Lugia. He's canonically he substitute 8th gym leader. He's controlled darkness. I believe that Morty was on a path very similar to how Archie came. And if Morty really went all in on his training, he could have become another lore keeper or celestial even of the dark side, of that darker force made by, what the fuck is the name of the new Pokemon? Eboli, I think that was it. I'm still getting used to it. But from there, we're going into my hypothetical tier. First up, Raihan, fucking easily champion level. I put him at the top of my Legends tier list originally, but I realized that was only him holding back. That was him in his 8th gym fight, not him in his full power. And that if T-Tar had gotten to the final matches, T-Tar would have gotten fucking walkie-sloshed by Raihan. And this Raihan's true... Remember how strong Regifight was? I didn't put Bea on this tier list just because I think lore-wise she's honestly not that powerful or threatening. Raihan easily could be low-tier Celestial to high-tier lore keeper. He could be easily stronger than Morty, but we just don't know, seeing how Sword Extreme got canceled. From there, we got Nessa, who... This fucking revelation made me have a fucking conniption. This was the one that really made me fucking break down. I could not figure out what the fuck was happening. Nessa is Primal Palkia in her fight. So our first thought was, okay, there's a timeline here. Sword in the actual timeline takes place 20 plus years after Diamond and Pearl, Alpha Sapphire, because Gen 3 takes place at the same time as Gen 1, and Gen 2 takes place at the same time as Gen 4. So it could have easily taken place 20 years later, And Nessa obviously will at this point have inherited Palkia or Primal Palkia from Wallace. They're both water trainers. Maybe Wallace trained Nessa. That makes sense to me. And then I realized that they mentioned Hop in the library, and that whole timeline theory falls apart. So I just genuinely can't figure out what the fuck is happening. Nessa's Primal Palkia, meaning canonically she would have to be fucking Celestial tier, but I just can't put Nessa in Celestial tier, so I'm putting her in this hypothetical tier. Next up is Steven. I genuinely don't know where to. I guess Steven scales to Wallace, but he has no real anything that puts him in that Celestial tier. Again, this is a byproduct of making the Celestials in this game. Nessa and Steven are just kind of like products of that. Um, so they're like characters that don't really fucking make sense now in this new lore. And maybe in the future we can get to see more about them, but Steven and Nessa are here in this hypothetical Celestial tier. Next up is Leon. Leon would easily be Celestial tier. I actually think Leon could be in the God Keeper tier. But we didn't get that far in Extreme Sword, so right now he's just hypothetical. I believe he could be extremely powerful in the lore, though. And finally is Hau. Hau scales to Sun Extreme T-Tar, but besides that has no real feats to his own. And Sun Extreme T-Tar is at the top, like close to the top of the Celestial tier list, and I just don't see Hau being in there in good faith. Again, if Sunny Stream had finished, I could definitely see Hau being in there. But as it stands, Hau, I'm only putting him in this hypothetical tier list. And now we get to the actual Celestials, the big boys of this fucking verse. And at the bottom, I'm putting the Grand Tapu. Fuck it, no. I'm actually moving this. You're seeing me connect this live. I've changed this live. Yeah, okay. At the bottom, the Celestials are putting Dawn, just because she has very little battle experience and wasn't even a trainer until almost partway into the adventure. And you see how much she gets Wahi Slushed by a even stronger Celestial later on, even with teaming up with Barry, who's the person directly on top of her. I just think Dawn and Barry, while they are Celestials, they are at the bottom of the Celestials. After that goes the Grand Tapu, a very powerful Pokemon who's able to fight off some extremely powerful Pokemon before being broken down. Even 1/4 of his power, making the 4 Tapus, makes them a Legend tier trainer. So 1/4 of his power is a Legend tier trainer. It's again hypothetical, but I'm putting him here because at full power, he would have to at least be as powerful. From there, I'm putting a trainer who I believe to be even stronger than the Grand Tapu himself, Hop. Hop has the power of the full original dragon, which is insane. And on top of that, has 5 powerful Pokemon of his own on top of that. He is extremely powerful. And I believe is easily like top of this verse, top 10 trainers maybe even. But above that, we have Cyrus. Hop, I believe, to be an even stronger Barry. So if Cyrus could beat Barry and Dawn, I think that makes him scale slightly above Hop. I could see a good argument for Hop being stronger than Cyrus, but I just don't think so. Now, Sword Extreme T-Tar is probably stronger than Cyrus. He's beaten an original dragon. He's fought what's it called? The poison dragon Pokemon from Sword and Shield. Wow, Eternatus. He's fought so many powerful trainers that at the end of the series could easily have been God tier. But again, Sword Extreme got canceled. From there, Wallace. So, Sword Extreme T-Tar fought Nessa, Primal Palkia. Don't know the validity of the Primal Palkia in Sword Extreme. So that's why I'm putting him slightly below Wallace, because while he does obviously scale to Wallace, because he has fought Primal Palkia, I feel like Wallace is trained so much at this point that he's because he also has like 5 other Pokemon on top of that. He also has, I think, Manaphy. He is Mega Melodic. He is easily stronger than pre-Dark World Archie. He destroys Majin Maxi. He is easily top trainer of uh, Hoenn for a while. So I think he scales above Sword Extreme T-Tar. And then above Wallace is Sun Extreme T-Tar. Sun Extreme T-Tar has some fucking bonky feats, bro. As I was saying, I was hella down playing Sun Extreme. I thought he would be high lore keeper at best. But he's at the top of the Celestials. He is so bonkers. At the beginning of his series, he fought not one but two Tapus. Okay? And then on top of that, not too long after, fights a Primal Dialga, easily making him Celestial tier, I mean. But that's at the beginning. From there, he fights a Guzzlord Z, which, whatever, I just don't know what the fuck is up with those Z Pokemon. But he also fights Primal Giratina. He fights Guzma and Mullane, his easily beaten champion level trainers, only halfway through his adventure, and still so much more to go. Even now, he stands towards the top of the Celestials, would definitely be probably top of the fucking verse. I bet he could have been even stronger than Divine Diamond T-Tar if Sun Extreme kept going. Sun T-Tar is hella downplayed. Not many people think about how power stacked his team is without legendaries. But there is one more Celestial who I think is the strongest Celestial. Cynthia. Well, yes, Sun T-Tar has beaten Primal Giratina. Cynthia that's just one of her Pokemon. One of her Pokemon almost destroyed Sun T-Tar. She also has Garchomp, probably Spiritomb, and many more Pokemon. I also think in the Celestial tier, we would have probably had like Volo too if we did get a Legends Arceus Extreme, but we didn't. But Cynthia is probably the strongest Celestial tier character. From here we get to the God Keepers, the strongest characters in the whole verse. These 5 characters I'm about to mention to you are so fucking powerful that they kind of make everyone else look like a fucking joke. And at the bottom of this tier list, I would say would have to be Alpha Sapphire T-Tar, which I'll get to actually in a minute because I want to talk about Briny. So Briny beats Alpha Sapphire T-Tar, just straight up. That's why he's here. But it's close enough where T-Tar could have won, and in an alternate timeline, so to speak, he did win. So it's close enough. I think Briny is still stronger, but like it's a Goku Vegeta thing where, Briny wins, but only barely type deal. Alpha Sapphire T-Tar is the weakest God Keeper, and Briny is stronger than Alpha Sapphire T-Tar. And from there we get Helix. Helix is very, very powerful. It took an Alpha Sapphire T-Tar plus Pico in order to beat Helix. So Helix needing the power of Alpha Sapphire T-Tar, which Pico is almost all of Briny's power. Briny is honestly not that powerful without Pico. But Briny easily would have lost to Helix. So it took Alpha Sapphire T-Tar with almost all of Briny's power due to Pico to beat a Helix. Helix is busted as shit and easily strongest Alpha Sapphire character, and solos the Sun Extreme verse and solos the Sword Extreme verse. Walkie sloshes the entire Sword Extreme verse. And then we get to the top 2, obviously the 2 kind of newest characters. Archie really inspired me to make this a separate tier list on top of the Celestials. Archie is a fucking monster, bro. Archie easily would have scaled to the top of the lore keepers at best. But due to this Dark World boost, Archie just fucking destroys probably most of the verse. He destroys probably every fucking verse. And the fact that the top of the tier list, the strongest character, Divine Diamond T-Tar, was able to defeat him shows how insanely powerful he is. And the fact that he's going to have to fight a Cynthia eventually shows that Cynthia is the top of the Celestials. I don't think she's as strong as Archie. Otherwise, she would have beaten him. Otherwise, she would have beaten Archie herself because she's the champion. She would have taken that responsibility. But the fact that she gave that responsibility to T-Tar shows that she herself could not do it. But she is strong enough to still fight on that level of Divine Diamond T-Tar, which is why I think she's the top of the Celestials. Divine Diamond T-Tar is on this whole fucking other level. Remember, he fought God. He fought Eboli, who is fucking Dark Arceus, basically. Shadow Arceus, in a sense. He made all of these Shadow Pokemon. He gave Archie almost all of his power. Divine Diamond T-Tar is on this just another level of character. The fact that he's at the top of the tier list, the Alpha Sapphire T-Tar is at the bottom of it, in my opinion. I think my biggest revelation from this video is how powerful Illimat is. Illimat's canonically champion tier. What the fuck?